All right, we're back again, long overdue, with our good friends from Octave, Zach and Julian. Um, a lot of you guys might know them from LinkedIn. They make some noise there, and they have a phenomenal product that a lot of people in the go-to-market space are starting to adopt. And I feel like they're picking up a lot of steam. Some big news that's come recently. But Zach, Julian, welcome. Would love for
Thanks.
you guys
Thank
to
you.
introduce
Thanks
yourselves.
for having us.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about you guys. Tell us a little bit about Octave.
Of
Let's
course,
get into
man.
it.
Well, thanks for having us. I was waiting for this day to get to join you guys and jam a bit, and this podcast has been really cool to watch, and watching you guys and all your success too. So, for those of you haven't met, so one of the co-founders of Octave. My background is really in go-to-market. So, 15 years ago, I was a SDR, banging the phones, and then grew up, I guess, in the world of kind of B2B SaaS. So, a bunch of companies people have probably heard of. So worked at LinkedIn and DocuSign and Dropbox. I had the good fortune of joining a small startup at a very early stage that Julian had started. So that's where we met. Maybe we'll talk about that story a little bit later today. But then, yeah, most recently working on Octave and trying to help agencies and growth partners and internal go-to-market teams, RevOps growth, and we'll see where we can take this.
Cool. And I'm Julian, co-founder and CTO here at Octave. I started off at Gmail, Google on the Gmail spam team, and then worked on Google Apps, fighting copyright, malware, and pornography. Left there to start up Smite, which was trust and safety and content moderation as a service, and that's where I got to meet Zach as well. And sold that company to Twitter, or now X. Served my time there, and was very eager to get back to building. To team back up with Zach when said he wanted to get the band back together.
It's an awesome story. I feel like no one knows the background between the two of you, which is super interesting. I'm going to want to ask you guys a million questions about that. Zach, we talked about it in
Yeah.
person, but I want to hear Julian's side too, because maybe you're full of shit. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Good check.
Yeah,
Yeah, a little spot check there.
yeah. But no, let's get into it. So let's talk a little bit more about Octave. What is Octave? Who do you guys serve? You mentioned go-to-market agencies, growth partners, and some internal teams. Well, let's talk about the product more, because I think you guys do a lot, and I think you guys do a great job at simplifying what you do with your marketing messaging. But there's a lot more going on behind the scenes, and it does a lot of the stuff that we do as an agency for our clients in a much more automated way. So I think it's really interesting to our audience, and I think a lot of people are going to want to learn more about it. So let's talk about Octave. I don't know which one of you wants to go into the weeds about it, but
I can take a stab to start, and I appreciate the compliment. I feel like it's like our meta struggle as a company that like we help with messaging and positioning and like telling your story, and it almost like it feels hardest for us to do that in a way. Somebody told gave me the expression like it's hard to see the label of the bottle when you're inside it. So that's what I feel
exactly.
like. But
That's a great analogy.
we look the what Julian and I got together to build and got us really excited was we felt there was like this foundational work, whether you're a growth partner or an internal team, like there's this foundational like work on your ICP. What do you do? Who is it for? What are the use cases, the personas, the pain points? What's our social proof? Why the heck do like people care about or should care about what we do? Like it's this kind of work that like is the foundation of a million and one jobs to be done. To your point, like we try and help a lot of things. So, a challenge for a startup, but like there was this body of work that we felt was just kind of existing in the ether. Like it existed in people's minds and in like decks and docs scattered all over the place. So like job one of Octave is like how can we help give people tools to like define all of those like key characteristics. And that's a job that like you don't just do once, right? Like especially now in a world of AI and the speed of like product development, like your product it can literally turn over every couple weeks and like be something new. So like no longer are we in a world where like it's like, hey, sales team, like here's the message at kickoff and like go see how it works and we'll see you next year or check in at the QBR, right? So there's this like velocity of like your core message that needs to pick up. So that's one part of it. It's like building kind of this brain. And that grounds then a bunch of agents in our platform to help you do then different specific jobs. So whether that's using the context of knowing what you do, who it's for, et cetera, to help you do really precise enrichments and qualifications and lead classifications, or obviously most people use case number one is like, hey, how do we do really precise, hyper focused industry by use case, by persona, by pain point messaging in a really what we think, streamlined and, potent manner. Like obviously the goal being like, how do we land a message with every prospect that's unmistakably meant for them? Like that's really the goal.
Totally. And that's the name of the game these days. I mean, what you're talking about right now, the message is different today than it is 3 weeks from now or 3 months from
Right.
now, whatever it is. Clay did a really good job about putting out this term GTM Alpha, right? It's like finding GTM Alpha and
Yeah.
finding the message that resonates for any given time period. Eventually you lose Alpha and then you've got to refine it, right? It's the same thing with finance, and that's where they got that term from, and it makes a lot of sense. So it's a good way for people to think about Octave is it's a way to consistently find GTM Alpha for your unique value proposition.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
This problem is never solved. It's never just you get it once right and then you just put it on autopilot. You constantly need to be testing, iterating, and evolving. And if you're constantly editing it at kind of like at an email level, at a copy level, you're kind of focused on the wrong part there. You really need to make sure that your foundation is right. Are you saying things that are relevant to the pains that your prospects are feeling?
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. And we spend countless hours doing it for our clients every single week. So tools like Octave can really help with efficiency and just the speed of finding that alpha. So,
Right.
All right, great way to describe it. I think that pretty much sums it up. No, I'm just kidding.
That's it. We're done here. Have a good day, and thanks for coming.
So I'm going to want to dive way deeper into the product, especially some of the stuff you're talking about with agents. I think that is a really hot topic right now across the board within go-to-market. And I think a lot of people have a very different definition of how they describe agentic workflows, agents, and how it all actually works. Julian, I'm kind of pointing this question at you because I'd love to hear from the technical side. But like, talk about how agents actually work within Octave and how agents are actually beneficial in the go-to-market space and what Octave's doing differently to make that happen.
Yeah. I mean, I think at its core, a lot of the challenges that teams face in go-to-market is that all this data lives in very siloed places. And so it's hard enough to get signal out of emails, out of calls, out of those decks and docs that Zach was talking about. And then trying to do that across multiple channels and doing that in real time just makes the problem that much harder. And so with Octave, again, what we're trying to do is centralize in that. And once you have that information centralized, that becomes a really important context layer. And so these agents and LLMs in general are very good when they are grounded and they know kind of what's true and not just be a very good bullshitter, because they're very good bullshitters. And so if you can give it that grounding, then you can start letting them leverage that knowledge. And so for Octave, the way we kind of leverage these agents is we give them very specific tasks. It knows what it's trying to do, and we give it the tools it needs in order to solve that. And so, if we're trying to qualify a person, first thing we need to do is understand what is it that your product or the segment you're going after cares about and does. Let's then do research on that person, on that company. That's external research. That's first-party research of interactions that you've had with them. Let's then find those intersection points to see, is this actually relevant? And then we can do a scoring versus just relying on firmographic signals like, oh, they say they're in healthcare, but really they're offering software to that, or they're just supplying them is not actually the target persona you're going after.
So question about that. So when you say it's checking interactions that maybe you've had with them in the past, what kind of data is it reviewing and looking at to determine whether or not it's an interaction that was positive, negative, the context of the interaction? I guess is it looking through your emails, your LinkedIn messages, meetings in the past? I guess help me understand that a little bit more.
Yeah, so a large part of that is what data streams are you connected to? So
Okay.
CRMs have a lot of this information, but it's hard to gather it out because they're just all a huge mess. And so being able to kind of navigate that info is one thing. Email interactions is another. Call scripts, again, is a great source. And I'd say if you look at most companies, like they're not taking things that their reps are finding in the field and not applying those in the actual emails. Or there are times where there's a use case being talked about that is resonating with people, and the amount of effort and steps it takes for someone to find that and then try to get that information onto their website so that it can be seen more visibly, like that just doesn't happen today.
That makes a lot of sense. So what's the best way to utilize Octave right now? Like, obviously I've utilized it myself personally, and then our team has as well for clients in the past. And the way we were utilizing it, and this was a few months back, and I know a lot has changed since then. You guys are shipping at a rapid rate. But when we were using it, we basically built the API that you guys gave us from a product that we created in Octave. And what that really means is we designed, this is the customer we're working with. This is their product. This is what they actually sell. This is what their messaging would be, depending on who we're going after. It gave us a list of the right people to reach out to. So in this case, it was a cloud spend allocation tool. So you're going after CTOs, you're going after head of data engineering, you're going after cloud ops, FinOps, these types of titles. And this is the messaging that you should be saying to those people. We plugged it into Clay via the HTTP API integration, and it analyzed every single row, every individual contact, researched them. And this is where the magic happens. I need you guys to explain a little bit more in depth, but researched all of them at scale and came up with very unique messaging about that product. So this company, the cloud cost allocation tool, for each individual persona. And then it went multiple layers deeper and said, this person also did this in their past. This person also seems to be interested in this. Their company focuses on this. Here's how we give you very, very personalized messaging that's related to all the things we just mentioned. And then it spit out very unique copy for every single person. So it was like fascinating to watch, and it worked really well. I think I told you guys this, but like we had a 10% reply rate and almost 100% positive reply rate to that email campaign. For context, like a normal good email campaign, you get 5-6% reply rates, 40 to 50% positive. Average today is like sub 1% for most people. So the reply rates were fantastic. The positive replies to those reply rates were fantastic. But talk us through, like, what is Octave actually researching? Like, what are the data points, like, about their LinkedIn profile, their website? Like, how is that all happening on the back end?
Yeah, so we have a very opinionated kind of like go-to-market lens that we're looking at this, and that's another kind of differentiator here is that if you go kind of use vanilla out-of-the-box ChatGPT, it's not going to be thinking about it in terms of who is this person, what is their career trajectory, what pains do they have in their current role, and who's on their team, all that information. So the first thing we really try to do is get an understanding of that person. And so we're kind of looking at their LinkedIn profile, their activity there, all those points that you mentioned. We do that same kind of analysis on the company as well. So what is this company? What's their history? What is on their website currently? Trying to come up with this full kind of go-to-market themed research brief on that company. Once we have those two pieces, we can now use that as a magnet or a source of saying, what is it that company, that person, that persona, what pains are they feeling, and what solutions that you offer would be a good fit for it. So every single one of those elements that live in that library that you defined of those kind of message market fit elements and the go-to-market elements, we basically run a classifier on those to say which of these are relevant for this person. That allows us to have a very, very tailored set of context that we can then use to pass into our different set of agents and prompts that will then say, now let me actually generate copy that's going to be relevant and the right tone for this person, for this persona, and for this company. And so, Zach and I, we call it the prompt swamp, because we spent an embarrassing number of hours arm wrestling with these models to get them to not sound like models and to really adhere to this notion of like personalization is not just saying, saw you went to this school, this coffee shop near you is pretty good, right? Oh, now do you want to buy my product? Like, no, that's not what we're trying to do here. We're really just saying this person has a job and they're trying to get promoted and they're trying to be a hero. Like, how do we best equip them? And if you can speak to that, the messages come through.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I noticed immediately about the outputs that are actually coming through. It's not like what you're talking about. It looks like you went to school here. It's like, hey, people in FinOps, especially at companies like whatever it is, have been struggling with this a lot. We've been hearing all kinds of rumblings about these kinds of costs creeping up, wondering if you're experiencing the same. If so, by the way, here's what, that type of thing. It was like very detailed. It seemed like it really knew every individual sub-industry that we were targeting, like, well. Like, it knew stuff
Exactly.
I didn't know, for sure. And then I would go fact check it because it's just the nature of my brain. But I was like, is this real? Is this true? And I would go fact check it. And sure enough, it's like there's something on the website that it was referencing that like makes perfect sense in the actual copy that was being outputted. So yeah, I mean, I was really impressed with the outputs. Let's just say that.
I think there's I want to try and coin a new term because I almost like I hate personalization at this point, but it's what everybody knows. But it's like what I think what you're experiencing there is like what we're trying to do is like contextualization. Like
Yeah.
I think that's more important than like the exactly precisely what Alex Fine cares about is like that's a really slim part of the story. Like what people respond to more is like, talk to me like other people like me that have a problem. Like that's what makes people feel comfortable in messaging and like willing to engage with you is like, hey, you seem to know about others like me, right? Like I'm not the first person you're gonna do this for, right? And there's like again, like that's something we've had to really bake deep into this mousetrap we've built. But it's like it starts at the beginning of like it is less focusing on this like, hey, I need to sound like a human and I need to sound like this cool casual human that knows about the coffee shop and just wants to grab a bite with you. It's like that shit doesn't matter. It's really at the end of the day the person just needs to go like, all right, does this person know who I am? Have they done their homework? Have they given me something I can respond to in a message that's just unmistakably meant for me? And like that's been our kind of like bar that we're trying to clear.
That was such a good explanation. That was perfect.
Let's go with Zach's answers from now on.
Yeah.
What am I even doing here?
I've been on a few calls trying to pitch Octave. So
This is
Yeah, well, you just got out of you just
I'm just
raised
the
around.
nerd who builds it.
Yeah. You just raised around too, so I'm sure you had to describe this to a ton of investors lately. Good practice.
It's it's a different type of format. This
For
one's
sure.
more fun, I'll be honest.
Yeah, I can imagine. We've never raised money, but I can imagine. The other question I had, so back in the day, it was a blend of OpenAI, Anthropic, and Gemini, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that still the case? Are those still the models that you guys are using? Just the newer versions?
Yeah, those are the primary three. I mean, we've built this thing to be LLM agnostic. We know we're not going to out research or outspend any of the main providers, and so we're not looking to build our own. And I really see them as these LLMs are engines, and you need to build a vehicle around it to get you to the workflow to the point that you want to do. And so we've designed our system to make it really easy to spin up new ones. As a new model comes out, we can just drop it in and kind of giving people the choice of what level of sophistication do they want to run to help match the budget they want to spend.
It makes perfect sense. And it feels to me like you said, there's no way you're going to outspend Google, Anthropic, OpenAI. Like they have hundreds of billions of dollars to spend, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to make a better model than them, but those models are so capable. It's really just about tuning those models for individual use cases, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You need to, the more opinions you can bake into the workflow and the guidance that you give these models, that's where you really start seeing some deltas emerge and having access to those data that I was talking about before.
Yeah. And that's the hardest part, I feel like, which is why Octave is such a special tool, because it's like, we create these individual GPTs, or even like you can play around with MCP servers that can access your data and then create things out of that. You can do all that stuff, but it's so hard to fine tune it to a point where it consistently gives you the outputs you want, which is why I think there's so much value in tools like Octave, where you have people that have spent literally at this point years, fine tuning it to a point where it gives you the outputs you want every single time. Like
what have your experiences been with the custom GPTs?
Fine. Like nothing special. Like it hasn't blown my mind. I think custom Claude projects are better, to be honest with you. It goes back and forth though. It feels like it shifts from month to month. Like right now, I'm loving Gemini 2.5. I haven't done any customizations with Gemini, but Gemini 2.5 has given some phenomenal outputs, which makes sense. It feels like Google really just stepped it up. They felt behind in the race, and they're like, okay, we got to do something special.
Totally. Yeah, I've been happy with that model.
Yeah, it's great. And then Claude, I mean, the new models 4.0 or 4, whatever they call it, and 4 Opus have been really good too. I'm really liking those too.
Yeah, Sonnet 4 is a chatty fella.
Yeah.
But
we just built an
good.
MCP server for N8N, so we've been building automations using natural language in Claude, and that's been a ton of fun.
Oh, so much fun.
Yeah. But anyways, so the other thing I want to talk about is the story. So this is like a fascinating thing to me. Zach, we talked about it over beers. That was fun. Yeah. But I'd love to just hear from both.
I made it up, huh?
Yeah.
at the bar.
Zach goes, come out to my favorite local dive bar and I'll tell you the story about how Julian and I met. And I'm like, okay. No, but I'd love to hear it from the two of you guys together. But like, let's talk about the story. So Julian, obviously you've already had a successful exit. You sold a company to Twitter. Zach, you were part of that company as well. And it sounds like that's how you guys met. But let's talk about it. What was that company? Julian, why Zach at the time? Zach, why did you bring Julian back on? You know, the roles switched. It was like Julian started the company, then Zach started the company, but you guys have stayed together the whole time, and you've already found success once, and it looks like you're finding a lot of success on the second time too.
Running it back. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, with Smite, it started where I was at Google and I was working on a lot of the systems there that they have to protect their users. And I had a friend who was at Instagram and Facebook at the time, Meta now, whatever it's called, and he was working on similar things. And he saw that when Facebook acquired Instagram, first thing they did is they plugged it into their internal system called Sentry, and like that was so important that they did that on day one. And we both had this realization is like, hey, the Googles and the Facebooks of the world have these systems to protect their users, but it's really hard to build these systems in a way that's modular, that's scalable, that have these kind of best practices built in. And so we set out to build that and offer that to other companies. And so Smite was this really powerful tool that could do a million different things, but it also made it hard to sell because it could do a million different things. And so there's no place in Salesforce for us to put in our personas and our use cases. And so there's this constant kind of challenge that we were facing where all this knowledge was in my head, where I was kind of the domain expert, and I could walk into a meeting and hear someone say one little thing and know exactly how to position our product. But there wasn't a place for me to kind of systematize that. Or every time we had to hire someone, I had to teach them how to look for those signals and do that again. And so I kind of just filed that in the back of my head that like I'm a nerd, I'm an engineer. There seems like there should be like a better system for this, but there's no home for kind of go to market elements. But like I guess that's just the way of the world, and just kind of sat with it for then. But then had the good fortune of meeting Zach, who was on the go to market and the biz dev side there, and was just always so impressed with how quickly he was able to pick it up. And we would be in all these meetings because, again, as a founder and a startup, you always wear a lot of hats. And so I would go onto these sales calls and into the client calls as well to hear what they're saying and kind of learn about their needs. And I was just always so impressed with how Zach was able to kind of speak their language and really quickly pick up on those little hints that they were giving. And he could shapeshift our product in order to kind of match what they were needing.
That makes a lot of sense. Zach,
Yeah.
is it true? I'm just kidding.
Nope. I met Zach on the street.
I always describe it as the good fortune to be able to join, Julian and the rest of the Smite team at where they were. We got introduced by a great mutual friend that I worked at Dropbox with, and yeah, it was like we had and I don't think it's like a unique challenge for startups that build really powerful, interesting, sophisticated technology, and we were going to these organizations, and like Julian described the problems earlier, it's like we could help you with credit card fraud or disinformation campaigns. Like those things are like they might as well exist on like two different ends of the earth. And so we were going into all these organizations and we're going like, is this a product problem for you? Is this an engineering problem? Is it a security problem? Is it actually like a legal and compliance problem? And then you have this whole other set of like the thing shifts on his head for like some of these issues where they go like legal and compliance is like, yeah, it's a problem, but as soon as you tell me about it, now I'm kind of liable. So like we had this like, for a young startup trying to grow, and we were growing nicely. We had this like crazy complicated like ICP and go-to-market matrix. I think it like, that like stuck in the back of both of our heads for a long time. And then 5 years later, generative AI came out and it was like, wait, okay, cool. Like there's this parlor trick of like, wow, like if you've done anything customer facing ever, like you've sat in front of your computer and tried to crank out an email. So it's like, it's visceral, it's clear. We've all had the blank page cold start. But then I think what got us really excited was that dream of like, oh, there's this like underlying metadata layer almost that's like not captured anywhere. And that was like then me going, tugging on Julian's sleeve, hey man, we might be able to build this, and by we I mean you.
Yeah. So, we got an idea. Julian, can you build this?
Right, go do it.
Yeah. Well, that's a skill in itself. It's finding the right people to get you where you need to go, So that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that you guys are doing it again. Julian, I don't know if you're open to disclosing it. Numbers matter. Numbers make people happy. People want to hear. What was the exit like?
I don't know if it's publicly available there, so I don't know what I'm allowed to say. But it
Okay.
was we were all happy.
Okay. All right. I won't probe too hard. I
Yeah.
won't probe too hard. But yeah, that's awesome. So you already know. I mean, you guys have been through the process, which brings me to my next question. You guys just very publicly, this one is public, raised $5.5 million for Octave. I'd love to hear about what's next. Julian already mentioned before you jumped on, Zach, that you guys signed a new lease. You have an official office now. That's really exciting.
It is.
But yeah, tell us what's next.
We're doing the IRL thing. We are committed to it. We're getting keys. Hopefully Monday. We'll see. I'm waiting for the response of where to pick them up actually. But yeah. So we signed a lease. So yeah, we're spending some money there for sure. Look, we're hiring. So like it's gonna be, through the end of the year, we need to hire at least another 10 people probably. Half engineering, half go-to-market side. But I think fundamentally, I feel like we're even in a sea of seemingly endless go-to-market tools. We've kind of found this crack in the sidewalk of that we feel like no one's kind of paying attention to. Like there needs to be this home for your ICP, and like this becomes incredibly important in a world of like an AI-enabled go-to-market stack where we want to be friends with everybody. We want to go, hey, all your tools, like they need a spinal column to make them smarter and know what the hell you do. Like Salesforce as a system of record, like it doesn't know if you're selling Gucci shoes or State Farm insurance, right? It's got a bunch of names and phone numbers and addresses and POs and right. And so we truly believe there is this like opportunity to be this kind of spinal column. And that's like, not to be too abstract about it, but we got to go chase that down like crazy because we think it's something big and somebody else will do it if we don't.
Yeah, you're spot on. It's going to happen no matter what. We might as well be the ones to do it.
Right.
What about the product roadmap? So what's next there?
So I think the big things are, look, the big theme would be right now, Octave is really good at like helping you create net new stuff, right? Like it's really good at helping you go like, man, for a go-to-market agency, I got a new client. I don't really know their business. Like, how do I go from 0 to 60 on like, okay, I can like lay out a strategy, understand their ICP, prepare something that I can validate with them quickly, build out campaigns, build out actual copy and emails. I think we got excellent muscle around that. I think the next thing you're going to start seeing a lot more of is like what Julian was talking about earlier. Like, how do we close the loop where like we're using that same brain to listen to your conversations and we go like, hey, when you talk to hospitality companies, specifically restaurant chains, and you talk about this type of problem with this type of person, that seems to be getting good response. How do we immediately feed that into the next email that's going out 30 minutes later, right?
I think so iterative feedback.
Right. So I think that's what you're going to be seeing a lot of next is like, how do we just make that a seamless feedback loop, right? And I think always to us, we are big believers in, like a human in the loop component. I think these systems need that for the near term. So you'll be seeing more workflows and systems to, hey, how do we as a, whether you're a growth agency or kind of this modern go-to-market team that's like emerging at companies, like you're no longer this big, broad infantry and artillery. You need to be SEAL Team 6 and like shift on a dime, move quickly.
You're an excellent snapper. Your snapper really crisp. Yeah.
I feel the shake over here.
Yeah, it's like,
that is, we need to give those teams a set of tools and workflows to really make that iterative process smooth and efficient and efficacious, and like we're doing work that matters and getting results. And so you're going to be seeing a lot more there.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot here because you might not know the answer yet.
Yeah.
But when it comes to iterative process like that, so it's like you get a response, you take the context from the response, does it automatically just feed back into the product that you've created in Octave? And is that how it's like gathering intelligence and building a brain so that can be repurposed for the next campaign or something like that?
I would imagine, and this is partly what we're building now, that there are going to be degrees of control you can have in terms of how autonomous you want to make it. I think for the initial part, and what I would recommend is like, hey, don't have it on full self-driving mode right yet, just because you don't want to just change your whole strategy because you got one reply. You want to be aware of those and kind of identify the trends, and you shouldn't have to be the one to kind of sift through and understand why is it that this thing works. Like that's where Octave should come in. It should be the one helping you understand, we think this is working because of this. And once you know the kind of the why, that makes it really easy to make an informed what do I do next decision. So
Yep.
okay, this type of persona, this segment is responding or resonating well, like let's know about that. Does that mean we need to update how we talk about our product, the pains we focus on for this persona? Does that mean we need new collateral to kind of better enable our reps to reach out to those folks? Like there's a lot of side effects and kind of outcomes that happen once you start being able to answer those questions.
Makes a lot of sense. You guys know me, for better or for worse. I love to offer my opinions from the product perspective.
Let's hear it. Yeah. Oh,
but
we're better.
Yeah. Have you ever considered the idea or toying with the idea, or is it already maybe in motion, where you can basically chat in natural language with your product based on responses that have come in and identify key trends? So like, for example, let's say I'm running a campaign. I've sent 5,000 emails total. Out of those 5,000 emails, 200 people have responded. They've all said some sort of unique problem statement. Hey, would love to work with you guys, but this is my primary concern. Hey, not interested right now, but could be at the end of the year. Hey, not interested right now because of X, Y, and Z. And then you can chat in natural language and ping your product and say, what are common objections from CTOs related to our product?
Oh man, I assume you just must have our office bugged because this is.
I spilled the beans at the bar. It's in
Okay.
the field now.
Yeah, that's literally what we're building. Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And so like again, this is where having those very opinionated kind of go-to-market lens, that's where this stuff matters. And that's why we're taking this approach and we're baking those into our analytics and insights platform. And so when we're processing those emails and those calls, like what we're going to be doing is trying to come up with those types of insights of saying, what are the top objections? Not only what are the objections, but hey, how do we handle those? Like, is there a clear winner in terms of how you're going to handle these things for people when they're getting that aha moment? What is it that's getting them to that moment? And how do we make that clear and more apparent and obvious? So yeah, long-winded answer to say, totally agree, and want to have it both in a way where there's kind of this like proactive information that we're throwing at you and kind of surfacing to the top, but we'll also want to give you access to kind of all the foundational data that powers those insights, so that you can just chat with it and you can go spelunking and find the data that you want to find.
It makes perfect sense. I mean, the end goal, at least for me, would be to ping the brain, get all the context you need about the brain, and take action based on the context that you're being provided by the brain.
You're hired. Yeah. We found our marketing person.
Yeah, and I think go ahead.
Yeah, you're both hired. Yeah. I can feel.
Yeah. Alex. Well, what's really cool too is like these models are really good at digesting information and taking context and building more based on the information that you're giving them. But you have to be descriptive. So it's like the beauty of what you guys do, and Julian, your CTO-ness and engineering brain, is being able to take the context that's being provided and actually action it to the brain. So the brain says, okay, this is what I should be doing with the context that I'm receiving, versus just feeding it in and just hoping for the best, you know?
Yeah. There's like a interesting, I always joke that like, I truly believe like there will be a AI astrophysicist before there's like a good AI salesperson. And like part of it has to do with like these, whenever you see an LLM benchmark come out, it's like always on STEM subject matter, right? Because like those are things that like there is a source of truth, right? There is 100,000 textbooks that have been written on physics that GPT can go read, and those have been like subjected to rigorous scientific method and research over hundreds of years, right? And then you move into like sales and go to market, and we're just in this like quantum soup, right? Like there is no source of truth. It's different for every company and every product and every single day based on like what's happening in the universe, right? And so there's like this, you know, a lot of what we're trying to do, to Julian's point, is like, you know, there's still the engine, like they're a jet engine, you know, like it's unbelievably powerful. They're a Falcon rocket engine, but like they need to be harnessed in the right way and like given the scaffolding to think about the problem correctly. And like that's what we're trying to do. It's like the LLMs aren't natively good at like, oh, I had this persona and this use case and this pain point, and we're running a warm campaign for somebody that attended a happy hour. It's just like it'll say something that sounds reasonable, but like it's not actually grounded in anything at all,
Exactly, because it's not trained to say the right things
Right.
or do the right things. It's
Right.
trained to just digest information, process that information, and make. I mean, I read this somewhere. I'm trying to remember where I read it, but basically, it's my understanding is these LLMs are basically designed to digest the information and take a guess and say, when you ask a question,
Right.
this is what I know based on other things that I've read. So maybe this is what you're looking for.
Right.
Versus say, this is the exact use case you have, and this is exactly how I'm going to
Right.
think about processing information and delivering it back out to you.
Right. I heard Chamath on like the All In podcast a couple weeks ago. He was saying they're like glorified autocomplete is what
Oh, Zach, you're breaking up.
Oh shit. Can you guys hear me?
I didn't hear you.
You can hear me?
You turned 8-bit.
No. It's shit.
Nah,
You went from Tron Legacy to the original Tron.
Yeah. You're either an 8-bit Zach or like a witness protection Zach, where like you're telling us who did the murder. There you go. You're back.
Back?
Is he?
Maybe not.
Shit.
He's fully gone.
Right.
Yeah, no,
I
he's
don't know what to do. Carry on without me if you can hear.
I can pause for a second.
Damn it.
We're back. A little bit of technical difficulty, but we're back.
I think I know what I was saying.
What? So yeah, I mean, say it again.
Oh, I was saying I think I know what I was saying is we were talking about LLMs, and I was just saying I was going to repeat a Chamath quote from the All In podcast like a few weeks back. He was just calling them like ultimately they're like glorified autocompletes.
Pretty much, yeah. It's funny. I was watching my girlfriend. This is the only thing that freaks me out a little bit about LLMs in general. Is I worry is the population going to get smarter or dumber? Because it makes things way too easy.
Yeah.
And people stop learning hard skills. Like I was watching my girlfriend, and yesterday she was applying for a new job in like a totally different field. She's an occupational therapist. She wants to become. She wants to go into med device sales. So she's reaching out to this VP of sales at this med device company on LinkedIn, and you know how it is. Like I would classify myself as a borderline LinkedIn expert, if not just a full-blown LinkedIn expert. Like I'm very good at LinkedIn. It's like part of our business. It's what I do. So I'm offering her advice. She doesn't want to take my advice. So what she does instead is she goes to ChatGPT and she says, what should I say to this person? Gives a little bit of context. And it spits out this message. And I'm like, okay, it's not a good message, but we can tweak it a little bit. She let me help her there. And I'm thinking like, this is something that we shouldn't be using ChatGPT for.
Yeah.
You know, you're sending a message to somebody who you want to hire you. Be authentic, be real, say the right words, but get yourself hired with your own unique voice. You don't need to use an LLM. So that makes me think like, I don't know. Are we going forwards or are we going backwards? I think we're going forwards in terms of efficiency.
Yeah.
But from a human brain perspective, I don't know. I can't answer that question.
It definitely, it's easy to reach for the easy button on a lot of things. And you get back something that sounds reasonable and you're like, all right, I'll take your word for it. Let's run with that.
For sure. And I feel like also, I mean, Ali and I use this tool called Whisperflow all the time to speak to the LLMs. And it's like being able to voice dictate and you don't even need to type anymore. Yeah, it's like it's insanely easy. It's so easy. It's just, I don't know. It makes me think everything is going to be so easy moving forward that no one's going to know how to write with a pen and paper. No one's going to know how to write their own emails.
Yeah, I mean, what does this do for education? And
totally,
like, there's a lot of question marks for sure.
If I was a kid in high school right now, I'd be cheating on every assignment.
I mean, but at a certain point, does it become a skill? Like, it's expected that you're going to use this stuff. So, like, how well can you use it? And I wonder when they start adapting some of the tests for things that are either outside of it or like you have to show that you know how to navigate these.
Yeah, and I think it's a generational question because I think the existing generation of teachers, right, not the new preschool teachers and high school teachers that are coming straight out of college, but like existing college professors who have 15, 20 years of experience that don't work in STEM, right? They're obviously going to be very resistant to adapt to all this new stuff because they work so hard to build their skills to
Yeah.
become best in class at what they do, and they want their students to do the same. So I think with the new generation, what you're saying is going to happen, but there's still an existing generation in place that's probably prohibiting that.
Yeah.
That's my take.
I don't know if you guys lost me again.
Dig it.
Well,
I think I disappeared somewhere in there, but I probably agree.
We did.
we did,
But
but
you're
back
back
now,
in,
and that's all that
you're
matters.
back in full res.
All right.
I spoke too soon.
Yeah, you spoke too soon.
Yeah, I blew it.
It's over. Time to wrap this.
That's all right. I know we're running at the end in terms of our scheduled time. Yeah, but this has been a ton of fun. I think a lot of people are going to get a ton of value out of this. What you guys are building is definitely special. You've done a phenomenal job with the actual product. And I think one thing you guys have done better than most companies in this space is it seems like you're going product first versus go to market on your own business, which is great because, you know, despite the fact that you guys don't have this gigantic global presence like a company like Clay yet, what you do have is a phenomenal product that works well, and works every time. And that shows the second you use the product. So I think a lot of people are going to get a lot of value out of this. Hopefully a lot of people try Octave and give it a shot.
Thanks for coming on and being an early believer and user, and excited to roll out some of the new stuff for y'all.
Totally. I can't wait to try it.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.